You are listening to X-Wing Radio.
Welcome back, Rebels. I'm David, that's Wesley, and you just tuned in to X-Wing Radio. You're a bi-weekly podcast from a galaxy far, far away.
That is right. We are bi-weekly, even though we lied to you last week for all two people who listen to this. That's fine.
Yeah,
It is what it is.
Yeah, scheduling issues. I know last week we said we were gonna, or not last week, last time we said that last week was when we were gonna upload this episode, but it didn't work out, so.
Anyways, yeah, a lot of things happened. It would have been a lot better as far as hosting stuff. Would have been a lot better if we were able to do it last week, but that didn't end up happening. What we are talking about, David, is Andor Season 2, the end.
Wait, they made a second one?
Now they have two. They have two seasons. But David, this is the end of such a great character. Like Cassian Andor.
Technically, the end is Rogue One, but
this is the last time in new projects where we'll see this character. All right. So no, but like this is Cassian Andor. Like, okay, I have not been apologetic. I have not been shy. I have not been quiet about the fact. Anyways.
What was that?
I know where I'm going, but I completely blanked on Rogue One. So, anyways, I have not been shy about the fact that Rogue One is one of my favorite Star Wars movies. I've also not been shy, neither have you, David, in the fact that we're sharing half a brain cell, and I'm probably having a seizure or a stroke or something along those lines. Well, that's okay.
Probably, but
because you know,
because you were kind of like going on and on and on. Anyway,
I got sidetracked.
It's like you had kind of like a Joe Biden moment there.
you can just yeah.
You kind of just proved my point.
I know, and it wasn't even on purpose. It just happened. So, anyways, I love Rogue One. It's a great movie.
And this character you're trying to get to.
This character of Cassian Andor, we then following his story in this show called Andor. Wow, it's crazy. But like also, the story that's been told through Andor has been so good. Like this is the building of the rebellion. Has been like about one of, if not the only good thing out of Star Wars in recent years. And it's just all these good things, and it's over now. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. We're going to get into the nitty-gritties of everything with it. If you have not seen Andor Season 2 or Andor at all, first off, go watch it. It's great. It's a great show. It is worth your time. The first season is a little slow in the first couple episodes. Honestly, probably the first episode is slightly slow. Maybe into the second episode. They're long episodes, but it gets going real quick. After that, it's a great show. Go watch it. And if you haven't watched it, you're not going to understand really anything that we're talking about here. So.
Now, the season is kind of broken down into four. I want to say 4 arcs, but there is an overarching story, but it's kind of broken down into 4 arcs.
4 years, to be
4
fair.
4 years, yeah.
It's 12 episodes total. They released it in 3 episode chunks. The reason behind that, probably because they didn't think that people were going to care or watch the show or something. They were scared probably to release the show normally. Probably because of recent failures that they've had. This show would have been just fine if they released it on a week-to-week basis. But it is what it is. They release 3 episodes at a time, and each 3-year chunk, 3 3 year. 3-episode chunk is a year. So we start in, what is it, 5 BBY or 4 BBY? It's four chunks, so it'd be 4 BBY, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So we
And this
start
kind
in
of
4
bridges the
BBY.
and this, of course, bridges the gap between Andor and Rogue One, pretty much.
Mhm.
Andor season 1 and Rogue One.
Mm-hmm. So David, there's some interesting tie-ins because um with this we get to see some other aspects of um some other shows that take place in this same time. One, obviously not one, the only one is uh Rebels. We get to
Mm.
see some different tie-ins from Rebels, and not necessarily that everything from Rebels ties into this. More so along the lines of there's one episode in particular that kind of this whole entire, like, everything that's going on relates to and kind of shows a little background to. So there's an episode in Rebels where Mon Mothma gets evacuated, or evacuated, rescued from Coruscant because she has called out the Emperor basically in a speech, and the Rogue Squadron, or the the crew of
Ghost crew.
the
Yeah.
Ghost crew. That's what I was looking for. The Ghost crew has to help evacuate her and get her to. I believe at the time it was supposed to be Dantooine, but ends up eventually going to Yavin. Now, the reason I say that episode ties into what happens in all of this is because this whole entire season is about why she calls out the Emperor.
Mm.
A lot of this season ties in, or has to do with a planet called Borman,
Mm.
a very important planet for the making of the Death Star, which is a huge part of this series
So,
and Rogue One.
so very, very briefly, I'll kind of we can kind of sum up the plot. Just it's been a while since you watched the show. I know it's been a week since all the episodes have been out. So very briefly, we'll just kind of go over a little bit of the plot, and then we can dive into some of the more interesting points to us. But I mean, pretty basically, the overarching plot of the series is pretty much the Rebel Alliance is growing, and as you know, we get to see a lot of the Rebel Alliance growing, um, and I forgot his name,
Luthen?
Luthen. Yeah, he's kind of like the point man for a lot of the Rebel Alliance, um, but as a lot of this is going on, we're also starting to see the um beginnings of Project Stardust or the Death Star.
Yeah. So the first episode um has a scene in it. Krennic is in a room full of different variants in rank, Imperial officers, and he is essentially looping them kind of in to what's going on with the Death Star. The reason being is uh there's a substance on Gorman that is used to help with building the Death Star, specifically in building the Death Star with I forget what it is, but it's coating something like the liner or whatever in the Death Star for the laser to
Mm,
be shooting through. What they need, the kyber crystals to help make the laser. This is to help something along the lines with the laser. I forget
mm.
specifics behind it all. Um, but
Yeah, so
a- anyways,
this is
so
from
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. You finish. Your thought.
Okay. What I was gonna say though was he brings him into a room, and the gist of these first couple episodes, and the idea behind all this is, hey, this is a substance that we have. We're going to work into figuring out if there's an alternative. If there's not an alternative, we need to figure out a good way to deal with this.
So
Um,
another important thing about Gorman is it's kind of a trade hub because of what is it, fabric that they make?
yeah, they're a bit of a fashion industry hub, where so they have spiders there who weave silk or
Yeah. So and
dispense
because
silk.
it's like that like trade hub or the like fashion hub kind of a planet. Obviously, the Empire doesn't want to go in and just confiscate a bunch of the like pretty much the entire surface of the land of the planet to mine this material. So
Yeah.
on the actual Wikipedia article, there's a paragraph here about for Gorman about this series. It's talking about how director Orson Krennic gained interest in the planet due to the rich presence of deep substrate foiled calcite deposits for the a requirement for the Emperor's quote unquote energy project.
Yes, and
And then to facilitate the ability for the Imperial forces to mine the planet, an invasive process which had a chance to render the planet unstable. ISB supervisor Daedra Mero was given direct control of the planet. So that kind of ties back in all the ISB stuff from last season.
yeah. Um, I don't know. My computer's, I guess, acting really, really slow because either I'm acting slow or you're acting slow. I think both might be happening.
It's
Little,
possible it is both. Um,
very, very
but yeah,
possible that's both. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you fine, but I noticed
Okay.
your picture was a little stuttery there. But I mean, we're
Probably.
recording we're recording video separately, so the video doesn't really matter. But
Yeah,
as long as
yeah.
I can hear you,
I do wanna make this comment on that to that point. So in this meeting, Krennic goes off to Dedramiro and says, "Hey, I kind of recognize that you're thinking a little bit. Your thoughts and thinking is different than what all these other Imperial officers are, and I picked you for a specific reason. What are your
mm,
thoughts as to how we can deal with this?" And she brings up the thought of you need rebels on the planet. You need to get them to basically lash out at us so that from the public eye, they lash out at us, we wipe them out. It looks like all we are doing is self defense, as opposed to us just, you know, annihilating them, So that's the
mm,
idea, and that is what a lot of these couple episodes in the beginning are building up to. Remember what I said with the fact that this whole entire season deals a lot with what goes to be known as the uh what's it called? The Gorman massacre, which is
mm,
mentioned in Rebels, and which is what Mon Mothma speaks about in the Senate, and then has to flee.
mm,
This is leading up to that, and what part the rebels that we know of at this point, Luthen and the ones on Yavin, which are setting up base there. Um, we are figuring out what exactly all is going on
mm,
within all of this. But the rebels on Gorman are a completely different set of rebels, and uh they are inexperienced. They need help. There's a point in time where Cassian goes to the planet undercover, and one of their operatives comes and he scolds them for how quickly they try to have a conversation with him and start talking with him as like they're supposed to have a meetup, but like there's no like they don't have any caution whatsoever. And he was like, you don't know who I am. I could be anyone. I could be ISB. I could be anything. And you just came up to me and started spilling your guts. Like you need to be smarter, you need to be more careful. And it starts to show that they're inexperienced as opposed to the much more experienced
Well,
players like Andor,
because they're not
Luthen.
actual like. Okay, I mean, technically they are rebels, but they're not like.
It's more revolutionarians and rebels. Yeah, people who are revolting, and then the rebels who are actually like an
Because
organized unit.
Because that's the thing about like the Rebel Alliance, like they're really like freedom fighters. Like they're not
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not like just this like. I know a lot of times like in Star Wars they're kind of portrayed that way, but they're really not like this ragtag group of like inexperienced like okay, yeah, everyone in the Rebel Alliance was inexperienced at one point, but they actually had training, they actually, you know, had funding.
Well, that's another thing that we get into more so, I think, in season 1, but is touched
Mm,
on some in season 2, and actually is something that we have a wedding at the beginning of season 2. Mon Mothma's daughter is getting married. Well, why is she getting married? A lot of this has to do with the dealings that Mon Mothma is doing with the Rebel Alliance. This is an arranged marriage, and a lot of the underlining stuff to it is because she needs to cover up some different things. So, um, but anyway, so yeah, they're getting funded. You have all these senators. I mean, we get a scene. We have it in Andor, but we also get a scene in this show here of the council that is all of the senators that are funding and heading up the rebellion.
mm,
That's a good bit of funding that they actually do have. They're not a ragtag team. We see that a whole lot in this show as we get to see more of Yavin, and more of like, I mean, Andor gets in trouble multiple times because he's not following the regulations, and we as the audience are like, well, duh, he's not following it. You're being stupid. But they have principles and they have rules to keep them safe because if something goes wrong, I mean, as we see in episode 4, the Empire could just show up and annihilate them. Despite
mm,
them being well enough funded and all, and maybe even be more along the lines of freedom fighters, they are still no match for the Empire toe to toe. You know.
mm. But my point with that is like you said like I think you used the right word like the rebels on Gorman are really just revolutionaries, and it's not even like it really wasn't even their idea. It was the Empire kind of like planting these seeds
Yeah.
to get them to rise up.
Which is where our guy from last season, where's his name at? Sil 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 Sil. How do you pronounce his
Yeah,
name?
him.
Karn. That
Karn,
guy.
yeah, let's say Karn. Yeah.
I honestly did not take that much time to learn any character's name in this show, which honestly it didn't really matter because they're most of them dead by the end of this. Which I do want to get to
But
that at some point. I do want to get to that at some point in this episode, talking about the few characters in which don't die. Um, kind of where we may see them again because there are some cliffhangers with some of the characters. But we'll get to that in a little bit here.
well, honestly, most of the characters like we can talk about that in a minute. But basically, the entire premise behind the overarching story in this show is just the kind of the like Gorman is Gorman and the Emperor's energy project is really the
For Death Star.
central plot thread
Yeah.
throughout this.
Project Stardust and all that stuff.
Mm,
Um, yeah, and obviously because all this is leading to to Rogue One, that's obviously the way that we have to be going. Now, hmm, it's really hard right now to talk about much other than the finale, you know, because we know
mm,
what we know watching this show. You know, we know where it's leading. We know what's happened. A lot of it's just character development and um, you know, building towards the finale, which is really just leads us right into Rogue One. At the end of
Hmm.
the last scene, K2SO and Andor are
Which
heading to the Outer Rim planet place. What's the planet called?
um
Well, one day we'll come more prepared than we are.
yeah, but also I called that the K2 droid in the trailer.
Oh yeah. Well, I
I mean,
mean,
obviously that's not that big of a shock, but still.
yeah. Hey, one thing that I'm upset that I wasn't able to call, not that I didn't in the moment, but I didn't do it like in any of these videos, and that was the problem of us not being able to do the breakdowns as they came out. But was it wasn't exactly right. I would have gotten partial credit for this, but the relationship between Luthen and Kara, right? That's her name. Is that his daughter's name? Kara?
Yeah, yeah.
Kayla? Or whatever. Kali? Kalia? Anyways,
Kalia, that was
the
it.
relationship Kalia, the relationship between those two, um,
Hmm.
I uh I saw how much she was like in those for like the 7, 8, 9, I believe, where she's a little bit more concerned about Luthen and all that stuff, and I was like, oh, they're gonna reveal that she's his daughter, right? Which they didn't end up revealing that she was biologically his daughter, but in all other sense of
He
the
was
word, he basically had become her father in
he
some
was
sense.
she was kind of his adopted, like, because found
Yeah,
her as a kid, all that. Yeah, which it
yeah,
was interesting. Like, it was interesting getting to see those episodes because like this character that had been like pretty much in the background for the entire series
yeah.
is suddenly like, oh, like literally, I think she's been in the series the entire time, but
Hmm.
just like in the background. Like I didn't
Yeah,
even really remember her much from season one, but she was there in season one, and then
yeah.
she's
Very,
like,
very minor character.
and then you get like such a big focus on her in these last
Now,
couple episodes.
I do wanna touch on this and touch on your thoughts with this pertaining to Luthen. Luthen was willing to sacrifice anything and everything for the rebel cause, for what he believed in. Now, I'm not talking morality, but give me your thoughts on the different people that Luthen put down or sacrificed. Different times, different terms would fit better. But uh in keeping what he was doing secret. I think one example early on in the season is that other senator. I don't think actually he's not a senator. Um, Mon Mothma's friend.
Oh yeah,
If I can find his name. Uh, yeah,
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Tay Colma. Tay Colma. Is the name that I'm reading here. That guy. He
Mm,
Luthen had him killed. I don't think it
mm,
was explicitly well, it wasn't on screen, but there was an episode. There was the ending of an episode. Luthen made a comment to Mon Mothma. They showed the driver to the cab that he was in. They showed him. The driver was one of Luthen's operatives. More than likely, he did not survive that. I believe that was in an episode the last time we saw him. I could be wrong, but I believe that was it. So more than likely, he got done in because of issues that he would have posed. Um, then Luthen obviously took out Young. What's his first name? Uh, the ISB agent. I guess Supervisor Young
mm.
would have been the name. He took out him pretty well in just straight up cold blood. Was like, oh, now you know too much, so we're gonna take you out. Um, Lonnie Young. Yeah, that's his name here.
Mm.
So
But
supervisor.
so what exactly are you asking with all this?
What are your thoughts on it? Like, you know, like these are supposed to be the good guys, and this is what we're seeing them. The Star Wars growing up had always been so black and white, and now we're looking at a character like Luthen who is on the rebel side, who's on the good guy side, and he is making sacrifices that could be a little questionable. Like, I'm not
I
talking
mean, okay.
necessarily morality wise, but what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, okay, like the first time we really kind of saw like this kind of thing in the Rebel Alliance was actually in Rogue One. Cassian's orders were to kill Galen Erso.
Yeah. Well, even before that, the contact that he meets at the beginning of Rogue One, he maybe wasn't ordered this, but he kills him. Then
Mm-hmm.
we get to the point later on in the story where you're talking about where his actual orders are to take out Jalen Erso. Now, to be fair to that point, all they see Galen Erso as is an Imperial scientist. That's all they see him as. So he's an
Yeah.
Imperial straight up. Whereas this is a lot of times more. I mean, in the case of Lonnie, it's more of a thing of you're someone that is on our side. I'm still killing you. Um, uh, Luthen's also willing to sacrifice the Gormans, despite knowing that something's going to happen. You know, um,
Mm.
I
Which
it's more of your
okay.
thoughts on the fact that, like, if okay, me looking at this is like, obviously these are some very questionable acts, but
Mm.
you know, it's a very very realistic
Mm.
depiction
I mean,
of
okay, you
how
can't.
these situations would go in real life.
Mm. You can't. Like kind of like you get kind of hinted at. Like, okay, if you apply like actual morality to this, yeah, like that's wrong. You're killing people for really no reason. I mean, okay, there is a reason, but like, you know,
It's not self defense,
yeah.
straight up at least.
But then of course, you have the other aspect of like, okay, if you didn't kill some of these people, would the Rebel Alliance actually have succeeded?
Yeah, I do agree in the thought of what you a minute ago you kind of stopped me and were asking what am I actually getting at with this, and I do agree that I do feel like I'm a little bit off track. So let me actually phrase this as a question and maybe get to more of a point in what maybe I'm trying to get at. Okay, we get, I think, our first expletive, Hmm. our first real world expletive in Star Wars,
Mm,
presented in the sense of um, um, Bail Organa. He drops a word, and so I bring that up to say this is not a kid show. This is dealing with this is dealing with some big things. Okay, um,
mm,
obviously in the original Star Wars they blew a planet up, but you can blow a planet up and kind of gloss over that. As big as a planet is, that's a lot easier to gloss over in a movie than it is to have a scene dedicated to essentially genocide. So, what I'm asking, I guess, is how do you feel about Star Wars taking that darker turn? The writing in the show was amazing, and
mm.
I'm not necessarily even asking like how do you feel about it in the show. The show was great. I mean, you can disagree, but I don't think you do, but the show was great. But how do you feel about Star Wars digging into maybe more of that darker tone? Like, obviously we see stuff like that in Clone Wars, and it's called Star Wars. We're dealing with war. there's always been that undertone, but this really, really shows you some of the nitty gritty stuff that we haven't usually seen in Star Wars. So, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you like it? Do you want to see more of it?
It is interesting to see this. So I know back probably like probably 18 years ago now.
You weren't
Lucasfilm was
alive,
talking.
right?
Lucasfilm was talking about doing. I don't know if it was anything serious, but uh, a during the like Republic era. I don't know if it would have been probably would have been Clone Wars, but basically doing a political drama that takes place in the Senate
Hmm.
during the during the Clone Wars era, which that's almost what this is. This is a political drama with basically spies and espionage.
That was one of the best parts of the finale that I
Mm-hmm.
kind of got as the episode went on. I was expecting something better, and then I kind of clicked that I was like, "Oh, this is what it is," and honestly, this is great. We didn't get some big climactic battle at the end of the season. We got people debating on what to do, and that
Mm-hmm.
culminates, culminates. That collects the show, that completes the show, that brings the show to
Mm-hmm.
its end. I'm
Which
not going
I
to
will
try to
say,
talk.
I know when we talked about Andor season 1, we talked about a lot of the monologues, because a lot of them were really good, especially Kino Loy's.
Yeah,
But Mon Mothma's in the Senate,
yeah.
that was good.
Speaking of that, what are your thoughts on them not sticking to the script? Because here's the thing, I have only watched Rebels maybe 1.5 times. I like the show, but I haven't gone back and watched it. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I have memorized the speech that she gives in Rebels. But I have watched videos on it. There's this thing called YouTube, and you can watch these things on it. And so I've watched it. I've watched comparisons and yada yada yada, all the fun stuff like that. So I know that the speeches are not one to one. How do you feel about that? I mean, Star Wars is already riddled with holes. So what are your thoughts on the fact that they kind of just put another hole out there?
I mean,
Well, let me add this to it. Some people tried to tie it all into each other. So, like a couple weeks ago, we were trying to make sense of the inconsistencies in the Revenge of the Sith, right? With Padme and her pregnancy. We were trying to make it logical and all this stuff. Some people are trying to tie it all together, tie the couple speeches together, figure out a way for it to work. Do you necessarily need it to work, or are you okay saying this is all Star Wars, even if everything doesn't quite line up exactly how
so
it should?
here's the thing with Star Wars, especially now. And okay, you can't even blame Disney completely. Now they are definitely to blame for a lot of this, but you can't blame them completely because even during the George eras, or even during the George era, there were a
We
lot of
can throw
continuity errors.
we can throw it all at their feet. It's okay.
But at this point, honestly, at this point, if you're getting upset, if you're the thing you're getting upset about is something like that in Star
Yep.
Wars, I wish that was the biggest problems we had in Star Wars. Like,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You know what? I just had a thought, and I kind of like it, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to pose this as an idea, but Star Wars is a story that supposedly happened in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
mm.
Who's to say that every little detail is right from project
So
to
okay,
project?
but
Who's
here's
to
the thing. So
say the mainline thought is not just the key and the rest is just, you know, I mean, we got Star Wars Legends, we got Star Wars canon.
okay,
people
Here's
try
the
to put
thing.
all together.
Here's the thing. The mainline movies, or at least the original 6 movies, are told from R2D2's perspective. That's just a fact. That's R2D2 is the one who like is telling Star Wars.
Um,
But in cases like this, where
R2D2 is the main
R2D2,
character.
yes, but in cases like this where R2D2 doesn't show up, who's to say it's not
Chopper's
another person?
Chopper's the main villain. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. He's the main villain. We were talking about
mean,
Rebels, so I thought I'd add in Chopper, and then that just came out, so that makes sense.
I mean, he is the like the like psychomaniac droid. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So like, okay, who's to say stories like Rebels that R2D2 isn't in? Who's to say that like Chopper isn't the one who told the story of Rebels? And
yeah,
who's to say that like you know the story of Andor wasn't recorded in like Rebel logs somewhere that got dug up?
yeah,
So like there are things like that where I think you could take some leeway with that because at the end of the day, you're right. It is supposed to be like, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's a historical account or
yeah,
pseudo
yeah,
historical account.
yeah. Another thing
But
I had a thought on that you reminded me of with the thought of stories not always being told exactly how they happened.
mhm,
Um, and I believe it is the beginning of the. It might no, it's the beginning of the third arc. Third, so it'd be in two BBY. Here, Cassian and Bix are on Andor. Are on Yavin. Andor is a person, not a planet. Bix is on Andor, but that's a little bit of a different story that we'll get to later.
we're not going there right now. Actually, we're not going there
Well,
ever.
no. We are going there, but more of the product of there, not necessarily there. You know what I'm saying? Anyways,
Moving on.
so anyways, what I'm getting at is they're on Yavin, Andor and Cass, and right, they're two different. They're the same person, two different names. God, Cassian and Bix are on Yavin. It's been a long day, Dave. It's been a long week, but that's beside the point. And from a previous mission, Cassian has a shoulder injury. Well,
Mhm.
on Yavin, there is a force healer. Now, David, why do we watch Star Wars, right? What do we care? It's sci-fi. We can go to Star Trek. You know what Star Wars has or Star Trek doesn't? A lot of things. But one thing mainly is
Space
it
Wizards.
has the what?
Space Wizards.
Oh, okay. So we're on the same page. I just couldn't hear you. Alrighty. So I heard which
It's
probably is
Space
what
Wizards,
actually
but okay.
which is actually probably what
Yeah.
you said. But anyways, so
I mean,
yes, space whizzing. Um, space wizards.
okay. To be fair, conceptually, Star Trek would have to have that too. But
Not actually in space per se. Anyways, Jedi, the Force.
Mm.
What time frame are we in, right? I just said it a minute ago. 2 BBY, right? So this is in the middle of the Empire. What happened when the Empire was founded? The Jedi got wiped out. Within 5 or so years of the Empire, Jedi, if they were still alive, were being hunted down. If they were still alive and they were able to evade being hunted down, they were not advertising the fact that they were Jedi. So, what became of the Force, right? What was the public opinion of the Force? Honestly, to that end, there were probably even people like this within the Jedi minds, or not the Jedi minds, but within the time the Jedi were around. But Cassian essentially, at some point or another, says he basically doesn't believe in the Force. Like, you got to think of this in the fact that Star Wars portrays itself, because this is how George Lucas designed it. But Star Wars and the Force is a religion in Star Wars. You know, like the Jedi, we call them a cult, but it's essentially a religion. Not everyone believes it. You know,
Mm.
Cassian doesn't believe it. Cassian probably doesn't even believe in the Jedi or that they were real, even though it's only been like, this is 2 BBY, so it's only been 17 years. But that's not been a part of his life. That's not been a part of the world that he's grown up in for his whole entire life, pretty much. So he doesn't believe in that. And
Right,
then
but
he gets to
think about.
experience the Force. All I'm really getting at with this, and it was a little bit of a because my mind is all over the place, is it's a crazy thing to see in Star Wars, because we don't always think about this. People who don't understand or believe in the Force. We see this in A New Hope with Han Solo. Han Solo does not
Mm.
believe in the Force. You know, it takes proof, essentially, because it's not plentiful in the galaxy at this point in time. And even when it is plentiful, there are still people who don't believe in it, which I think we see sometimes in stuff like Clone
You
Wars,
look in like,
even.
yeah, I was about to say, you look in like Clone Wars and you see like points where like I think you see a lot whenever they go to like the underground or the like Coruscant Undercity,
Mm-hmm.
because you get like people who like, okay, live on the streets. They've heard about the Jedi, but like they've never seen a Jedi, a Jedi using the Force, and some of them probably never even seen a Jedi. So for all they know, it could just be like folklore or just like you know stories to like scare people.
I mean, what if I told you that they were monks that had mystical powers? Have you ever met a monk, David?
Mm,
Let's go with
I mean,
no. No, let's just go with no. Makes it simpler that way. How would you
okay.
know that monks don't have powers? Point made. I'm amazing at this. That's the same look Sarah gives me. Don't do that. Those narrow eyes and that face of like, dude, that was like that was scary. How like similar that was. Like, man, you gotta.
Moving on. I don't want to know where you're going with that.
Well, it wasn't a bad thing. Speaking of
Okay.
bad things, though, and maybe even where your mind was going, who knows? Um, one last thing we should probably touch on. Um, not that we're wrapping up necessarily, but it's a it's prominent in the show. Okay, Cassian has a kid.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what you were alluding to earlier.
What do we do with that information? Like,
Uh, Andor season 3.
when would it take place?
Um, New Republic era. I mean, I would have to.
Are we okay? But when in the New Republic era, right? Because you got to think about it. Like the Mandalorian only takes place in like what 5 or 6 ABY,
Hmm.
maybe. So a little bit later, but around that time, no more than 10 years after all this. So like
Hmm.
that, you got to wait till you know a long time later. Now, David, go ahead for all our naive viewers. Go ahead and shut down the idea that this is Poe Dameron. The look on your
Why would
face. Have you even heard that theory?
no, but
Okay.
what?
Yeah, people are saying it's Poe Dameron, although I'm pretty sure Poe Dameron has like canonically actual parents with actual names. So, um, I don't even know if the timeline would actually work out that well. I don't profess to know when the events of Force Awakens take place, but probably another like 20, 30 years, right?
Just
Yeah,
judging
that
by
might
how
be right.
old like the original cast is, and I would probably say yeah, like
30-ish years.
30-ish years, 40-ish years.
I
Um,
guess that would technically be right.
I
40
think
would be pushing it,
I think he'd probably be a little too old by that point. Now,
probably.
depending on actually, that'd probably still be kind of far out for that to work. I was about to say it might tie into the
Oh, you
what is it
the
the new
yeah,
Ryan, the Ryan Gosling one, the
yeah.
top
Hey,
Top Gun and Star Wars.
to be fair, Ryan Gosling is like 50.
Yeah.
Okay, we get to see. All right, Bix's story that does not need to move on anymore. She is living a peaceful life. She is she has her son. Uh, you know, uh, Cassian's not coming back, but like she's kind of at peace. Okay.
Mm.
Um, so she's not a character that necessarily needs any more story. But we have a couple of things that happen uh with characters that it doesn't necessarily leave you on a cliffhanger. It's just like, will we ever see these characters again? We know what happens to Cassian. I got a list here of all the characters, and I'm gonna go down the list. We
Mm.
know what happens to Cassian. He dies on Scarif, hugging another woman. What a player. All right. Then we know what happens here to Dedra Miro, right? She's in a prison because she was thought to be a spy for what she did. Luthen Rail, he dies in the show. Uh, Serial Karn, he dies in the show. Somewhat unceremoniously, too. I was a little surprised by that. I kind of liked it because I was like, dang, a character that's been somewhat prominent throughout the whole show just like gets shot and is dead.
Like he's like standing over Cassie, and he's like, yeah,
Dead. Yeah. I
yeah.
thought he died when the explosion happened there in their little fight there. But
Mm.
anyways. All right, so then we have Ix. Okay, we just talked about her. We have Major Partagaz. That's the head ISB guy, I believe. Based on what I'm seeing here. Um he he offs himself. Because he doesn't want to report to his superiors. That's how bad the Imperial Army is. He would rather have got himself than had to deal with anything that the Empire could have done to him. Fair enough. Um, Mon Mothma, I believe she dies. In is it Last Jedi? Right when they use the no, Force Awakens. They use the Death Star. Isn't she part of the New Republic, or does she die a peaceful death later on? Is she not around by the time?
Can't remember because I know. Okay, I know she obviously shows up in Return. But I can't remember if she shows up in the sequels or not.
Well, I don't think she actually shows up. I just didn't know if she would still be alive. She dies long after these events.
Mm.
She's a leader. She doesn't actually have to do anything. All right. We have Kalia. Okay, that's a character. That's on. She's on Yavin. At the end of the series, she's on Yavin. So what's going on with her? Another one. Right. This is who I'm thinking. Wilmon. Yeah, Wilmon. He's on Yavin. What's going on with him? Um, Val. Vel. She's on Yavin. What's going on with her? Which one is this? Oh, okay. We have our supervisor Hurt, I believe. He dies a very. He's the one that K2SO. If you
Oh,
yeah, he's the one that K2SO used as a human shield. That was a bit brutal too, but that was anyways.
I mean, just knowing K2SO from Rogue One, I wouldn't put it past him. So
That was funny to watch. Supervisor Legret. That's the one that delivered the message to the major about them being outside and needing him. Uh,
hmm
doesn't really matter what happens to him. He's just another Imperial guy. Um,
are you
uh,
literally going through like every named character in the show?
the important ones. I've skipped over a couple. I'm
Okay.
wanting to make sure that we don't skip over a character that maybe something interesting. We skip over a lot of things, David. So we got time.
You know what this kind of reminds me of though?
Don't worry, there's not too many more characters that actually matter.
But you know what this kind of reminds me of though, because I
But
know you're right, like talking about this, because they can pull like Disney will pull any of these characters that they can into other stuff things just for
yeah,
the oh look I know that character, but
yeah,
it reminds me of that one Studio C sketch where they're talking about like when Star Wars ran out of ideas, and they're talking about how like that one shot from Return, where when like the Emperor gets to the Death Star,
yeah.
and they have like all the stormtroopers, and they have like the big zoomed out shot, and they're like, we made an origin story movie for every single one of these characters, every single one of these stormtroopers.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple. There's two more characters I'm going to mention, and looking through the rest of these, they don't matter. Um, the only other character that I'm going to mention right now before I find this last one is Brazo. He's the other guy, and he got killed in the first three episodes by a stormtrooper who could actually aim. So that was a little crazy. Um, he's he's the bigger guy with the beard.
Well, I
Um,
know, but I'm talking about the stormtrooper who actually aim. Like, did he
oh,
actually go to the academy?
I think that the fact maybe he didn't go to the academy helps him out more.
Yeah.
Okay, lastly, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find a name for this guy, but what about the bellhop on whatever the place is called? Or did he die? I don't think he died. Maybe he did. Maybe he blew himself up. The bellhop from Gorman.
hmm
The biggest thing that I'm honestly really curious about is what are they going to do with Cassian's son, if anything? And are they ever going to go back to Dedra Miro as a character? She's in a prison. They could go back to her.
I mean, to be fair, like they did kind of the same thing with Barris. Like,
Yeah,
they
that's
kind
fair.
of ended her story. Oh, she's in prison, on
Yeah.
Coruscant, and then, oh no, she's actually going through the whole Inquisitorius thing.
Um, what's kind of annoying though with this whole entire thing is like the idea behind Rogue One was, all right, everyone's gonna die because they're not around for the original trilogy, and why would these people not be around? Lesser characters, to be sure, but why are all of the other rebels that are still alive at the end of this? Why wouldn't they be around for different things moving forward?
hmm
Um, they were all on Yavin, so there's really no excuse. Obviously, there's the excuse of George Lucas did not think of this beforehand. The man didn't have time travel apparently, but you know,
Well, also the fact of like they could have written it so like if they wanted to have like side characters survive, introduce like I mean obviously you'd have to recast, but they already did that in the show with Mon Mothma and um Bail Organa.
Bail Organa.
Hmm?
I was just telling you the name.
Yeah, Bail Organa, but which I know he's getting old, but still, that's like when I saw they recasted him, I'm just like,
I think that it was well done.
mm.
I still would have rather have had um I don't remember. I don't know what his actual name is, but I would rather have the original.
Jimmy something.
Yeah, so this guy is Benjamin Bratt. Is this season's this recast of Bail Organa. I think he did a good job. I think he portrayed the character very well. But it's also a thing of man, why do they have to deal with recasting?
Jimmy
Which,
Sims, that's right. Yeah.
but it is what
I
it
mean,
is,
okay.
and I mean that's kind of just what's going to end up happening, which is a big reason why Star Wars needs to get away from this era. Although they tried that once and
Mm.
it really went bad, but at the same time they kind
But
of weren't really doing their job right. So who knows?
okay, so that's the thing with what I was saying. Like, if they wanted to introduce characters that survived at the side characters that survived at the end, like, okay, you're gonna have to recast, but why not introduce characters like Biggs or something, like a lot of like the pilots and stuff in A New Hope were already there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like introduce like you could have introduced like big. I think they already did. Didn't they already do like Wedge in Rebels?
I think they did. I think they did
I
Wedge in
want I want to
Rebels.
say like Wedge Antilles was like in there was an arc where like he was or an episode or two where he was like in the Imperial Academy and they broke him out or whatever.
I think
I
he
want to
was
say that
in
was
the show. I don't remember if he was necessarily, but that like that. But that could be very well the case. I have only, like I said, I've only seen Rebels like maybe 1.5
I
times.
want to say I want to say I remember that, but even still, you could have like maybe not like an origin with Wedge, but have like Wedge just kind of show up if you wanted to have like
Mhm.
side characters to survive, like you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's man, it was a great show. I have heard that apparently Tony Gilroy, the writer and the head of this show, um, well, one didn't really care to have to tie into a lot of other Star Wars, which is kind of why we end up having some continuity errors here and there because he was more concerned about telling his story as opposed to completely tying it in to everything, which is fine, you know. I mean, at this point in Star Wars, like you said, minor continuity errors are the least of anyone's concern. And if
Mm.
that's your biggest problem, you're lucky because there's way bigger ones out there with Star Wars that a lot of other
Again, like I
people
said,
have.
I wish that was the biggest problem in Star Wars now was like
Yeah.
continuity errors like that. Like,
But one way or another, he did an amazing job on this show, taking it in the direction that it went. And, you know, there was a lot of leeway with like how he could deal with certain characters and he did a great job with it. Obviously Cassian had to make it through, you know, but pretty much nobody else did. And
mm,
obviously Mon Mothma and Bale and stuff like that, but like, pretty much no one else did, and he kind of picked and chose who he wanted to and who he didn't want to, and he did a really good job with telling the story. And I was a little bit when like Bix left, right? Because I was under the impression that Bix would just have to die by the end of the show. And so I was kind of just
mm,
waiting for that to happen. And then she left. And I was like, in fact, that's a little bit of lazy storytelling, right? Like you're not gonna kill her off and have some emotional part to it, you're just gonna be like, yeah, so in the middle of the night I left. Then you get to the end of the season and she has a kid. And you're like,
Mm,
oh, now I see what you're doing here. Like, you didn't just write her off. You wrote her off, but you had a plan with it, you know.
mm,
I was like, that's really good. And you know, I don't know, this show did a really good job. Star Wars has always been a little bit of a political drama of sorts, but this show really heavily leans into that. It really, it really sets out to be that, and it doesn't hide from it. Like it's unapologetically a political tale of some sort.
mm. So, I had a thought talking when we were talking about this earlier. This
That's
isn't
not
really
a good
having
thing.
anything. This isn't really having anything to do with Andor, but I know how we mentioned earlier, like how different stories in Star Wars could have been told by different perspectives, and we know
Mhm.
George said that the at least the original six movies were told from R2D2's perspective.
Yeah,
So that means that and that's why he's constantly saving the day all the time, like, because of course he's going to embellish the story and make himself the hero.
fair enough.
So by that logic, that means that the sequels were told by Ray's or from Ray's perspective. That's why she never did anything wrong.
I don't have a comment, and I also can't think of a good segue to get out of this.
I'm just being stupid in case you didn't notice, but
um, what there was something we've watched or seen recently, read, something along those lines, that was telling Star Wars. It might have been one of the sequels, like the ending of one of them, and they were talking about like prequels or
oh
whatever. You know what I'm
no,
talking about?
that was the Lego thing, Rebuild the Galaxy.
Oh, yeah, that was what it was. I
Yeah.
like that idea though. I like that idea that in Star Wars, obviously that's not canon, but in Star Wars, right? They are retelling the events of the original
Okay.
movies, 6 movies, because at a later time they would be some kind of legends.
It's like the thing that like I'm sure you've heard that like in one of the interviews that Sam Witwer was doing because he was I forget what book it was, but he was it might have been the Darth Maul novel or the Shadow Assassin novel, I don't know, but he was reading lines for Darth Maul in an audiobook,
Yeah.
and in the book they had like said something that was basically like contradicted the um contradicted something in Clone Wars, I think. And he had like called Dave Filoni. He's like, what do I do? Do I not take the job because like it's contradict. It's that's continuity error. Like I can't. And Dave Filoni was basically said like it's okay for stuff to be different because it's someone else's perspective. And
Yeah.
even if you want to go as deep as talking about in universe, like it could have been someone else telling the story
Yeah. Exactly.
and remembering different details. Like if you actually look at eyewitness details in real or eyewitness testimonies in real life, they're never going to be the same.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that one's like you could have eyewitness testimony of the same event from two different people, and they're going to be different, and they're probably going to contradict each other. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that one's wrong and the other's right, or that they're
Yeah.
both wrong. They just remember
Just
different details, and that's
hmm
like
yeah.
so it's. to a point, it's okay for some of that stuff, especially given the fact that Star Wars is supposed to be uh historical narrative.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, a galaxy far, far, or a long time ago, and a galaxy far, far away. It's
yeah.
supposed to be historical narrative.
Speaking of Sam Witwer reading audiobooks, I listened to Darth Maul Shadowhunter,
Yeah,
which
that's the one
is
I was talking about.
yeah, yeah. So in the book, it takes place like right before the Phantom Menace, all these different things. But anyway, Sam Witwer reads the book.
Yeah.
Then a little while later, I had the book suggested to me of the Force Unleashed novelization.
Mm-hmm.
Missed opportunity because Sam Witwer was not voicing that. I was a little annoyed. It was still a good book, but I was like, man, why couldn't they have gotten Sam Witwer to
Mm-hmm.
voice this? That would have been pretty good, but didn't
Now,
end up happening.
what what gets me with the Force Unleashed games? So you've seen Sam Witwer, right?
Hmm.
And you've seen Starkiller, right?
Yep.
They designed the model for Starkiller before they cast Sam Witwer.
I think somewhere in my mind I knew that, but that's still crazy.
It's like if you told me that it was based off of like Sam Witwer from obviously from like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, no,
I
20
think
years ago.
I
Jeez.
still think
But
I still think he was based off of Sam Witwer. I mean,
like, okay, like it's like with the Cal Kestis, like you
Mhm.
know, it's obviously
Yeah.
Cameron Monaghan. But no, apparently they had like drawn Starkiller before casting Sam Witwer, which is just like, and actually apparently that's one of the stories that I've heard him tell before. Is like he went in for the interview and like several people were like, you're kind of looking at the character, looking back to him like that's
Oh, wait a minute. Something's
yeah.
here. This might be destiny. It's kind of the weird thing of like, and obviously in a case like this, it's a little bit different. And I can explain why in a second. But like Iron Man has a certain look to him. RDJ looks almost exactly like what you expect Iron Man to look like in most media, right?
Mm,
Um, but like you could say, okay, RDJ without a goatee maybe doesn't quite look as much like it. Whereas in this case, Sam Witwer just normally, with his head, haircut like he normally has it, no facial hair, looks like the way that they designed Starkiller, with a little bit of a buzzed head
you
and
yeah, but
no facial hair.
you give Sam Witwer a buzz cut and he's Starkiller. Like
Yeah, yeah. So, but like there is like times like that where it's like, man, this person was absolutely meant to play the character, and I'm just gonna stick with the thought that maybe Sam Witwer secretly deep down is actually Starkiller.
well, so that's actually one thing that I remember. Another comic book character actually. So apparently, for years, fans of the X-Men comics basically thought Patrick Stewart looked exactly like Professor X, and someone had given Patrick Stewart an X-Men comic book, and at first he thought someone had drawn a comic book with him in it.
That's funny.
So like again, of course he of course ended up playing Professor X, but like you know,
Yeah, perfect, perfect casting for it too. There
mm.
are some times. I mean, I
Also
guess I don't know. You also think about these
also
people who draw
a
these characters. Possibly, I mean, Patrick Stewart would have been a little bit more of a face that would have been known as
mm,
opposed to a person like Sam Witwer. But like sometimes they might like unintentionally draw inspiration from real life people. But
yeah,
Sam Witwer's case is a
yeah,
little bit more crazy just because he wasn't a big name. I mean, he's still probably not
mm,
a big name unless you're a Star Wars fan. But
mm. But then again, like sometimes you still get like sometimes you do get the opposite. It's like okay, in current Marvel comics, Nick Fury is um Samuel L. Jackson. Like that's just
Yeah. But
like
for
so
the
you do
longest
get like
time, Nick Fury was a white guy,
yeah
so completely different. So
yeah, and I mean it just happens. But also talking about Patrick Stewart, I don't know why I just thought of this, but after watching like the X-Men movies and stuff, I don't know if you get this, but after watching the X-Men movies, is it weird to go back and watch Star Wars or Star Trek: The Next Generation and see him walking around?
I have not watched Star Trek: The Next Generation since maybe probably a good 10 or more years.
Mm,
Mama and Papa used to watch it, and I would see it at their house, but I never like actually went out of my way to watch it. I'm like big time just Star Wars.
mm. But like I remember seeing that a few years ago and like kind of just the like wait, he can walk? Oh, right, of course. Like he's not actually like the actor isn't in a wheelchair. It's
Yeah.
just the character. Like oh gosh.
There's a show, one of the billion different detective shows that were made in the early 2000s, that my mom had recently started watching. I don't remember what it's called, but it said apparently it's about this lady who is deaf,
Mm,
and she ends up getting in with the CIA or whatever. And the way that she can kind of get through her normal life and kind of seems like she's normal is because she can read lips really well. So as long as she's looking at you, you can have a normal conversation with her, even though she never hears your voice. And she can talk and stuff like that, like she's learned how to talk and all that stuff as she grew up. And I was at one point, I was like, oh, is this a show idea that they had, or is this an actress that is actually like this? And my mom was like, oh yeah, no, this is actually like the actress actually is deaf. I was like, okay, it's like
mm,
sometimes it's hard to know, you know, if especially if it's a one-off thing that you're seeing this person in, if this is the idea the show had to begin with, or if it's an actual disability that the actor is dealing with.
mm. And then you've also got like um cases like Charlie Cox playing Daredevil, and he actually like learned mannerisms that blind people have.
Yeah.
Like in the show, a lot of times he'll like if someone's talking directly to him, he'll turn his head so his like blind people a lot of times obviously aren't gonna make eye contact with you, but if you're talking to them, they'll turn their head so their ears facing you so they can hear you better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And apparently he does that in the show, and just little things like that where it's like like yeah, like some actors do actually like take the time to learn this stuff.
There's some good actors out there. There's some bad
Mm,
actors out there. You know,
mm,
it is what it is.
yeah.
Sometimes you get good
Anyway,
shows. Sometimes you get trash. We got a good one,
anyway,
David.
I was about to say this is a Star Wars podcast.
It is a
Oh
little bit.
gosh.
It is a little bit crazy. I mean, let's see. What's the next? There's a ton of animated projects in the works. Ahsoka season 2 is the only other thing live action that we have planned, right?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, I
So,
think so.
I mean, I wasn't crazy about Ahsoka season 1. I'm excited to see what Ahsoka season 2 is going to bring because I think there's so much potential for the show. But I just it's going to be interesting to see how that goes, especially after a show like this. Like Andor's just wrapped up. Season 1 maybe had a little bit of an issue just because of the fact that people weren't as hyped to watch live action shows at that point in time. I think people were a whole lot more on board with season 2. I think it probably received a lot better numbers. I'm not entirely sure about that to be honest, but I would assume it probably had a little bit better numbers, maybe even really good numbers. But uh, the next thing coming out is going to be this season 2 of Ahsoka. And I hope it's good. I hope this is a somewhat of a turning point for Star Wars. I don't know if they actually know what's working and what's not. I mean, they should be able to have people that they can pay to tell them what's working and what's not. But this show works. It does a really good job. And I just hope to see more of this as Star Wars continues to shove content down our throats.
Mm. Well, I don't know what much else I have to say about this. Um, I think you just
I don't
summed it
know.
up well, pretty well.
I don't know honestly what we had to say about it to begin with, but you know what? We just spent an hour talking about something.
Yeah, we did. But
Now,
we'll
go ahead.
we're well, I was gonna get into kind of a little bit of like the update kind of stuff, but I don't know I don't know if that's where you were
Go,
going.
go for it.
Okay, but um, for the like 2.5 people who are listening, for the half person, you know who you are. I don't even know what I mean by that. Yeah, there you go. It's Wesley. Um,
Yeah, I half of the time. Let's.
yeah. Um, anyway, but we're taking the month of June off, and we will be back in July. I believe our
Which
first topic. I believe our first topic planned is talking about Rebels season 1, which don't
which
hold me to that because we might change things up, but that's currently the plan. So we
which
will be
maybe
back
even
then.
after following our this being our last episode of this quote unquote season, this quote unquote year that we have this past year that we've been going. I guess it'd be the section, the semester. Yeah, we're still in school terms. After it being Andor, which is a Rebel-esque show, maybe Rebels would be a good topic to talk about. But
Hmm.
now, David, I'm springing this on you, and I'm gonna hold us to it because this gives me more time to not have to think. Uh, we will be back on July 7th. That's the first Monday in July.
I think that's actually what I had on the schedule, but
Well,
we don't go by the schedule anyway, so
I have it. We have a schedule, David. I know we had one at one point. Anyways, I'm gonna go
I
ahead
we
and
we, we still
bookmark
do,
that
but
now. I'm gonna bookmark that now. That's we're gonna do July 7th. That's the first
yes,
Monday in
July
July.
7th. July 7th is the day that I have marked as
July
coming back
starts on a.
for episode 37 of
It's
X-Wing Radio.
crazy. It's crazy that we've only done 37, but then you also got to think like honestly.
Okay, but we did 60 of Purecast, so
Oh, you renumbered them. I didn't realize we renumbered them. Okay,
yeah.
and we do it bi-weekly, so that's only.
So technically this is episode 36 of X-Wing Radio, but it's technically 96 of just podcasts in general.
Dang, and we still suck at it.
I mean, you know.
That about sums up that.
I mean, technically, Mr. Beast said, you just have to get your first 100 videos out. Then you can, talk about, what you're doing wrong and stuff. But not until you get those first 100 videos out. So
Ah, well, David, I think we have made 100 videos. I just don't know if it's about the same things.
true, true. But
Yeah.
anyway, I don't know that we have much more else to talk about. So on that note,
Now this is podcasting.
well, Wesley's stunned. This is indeed podcasting. So
Honestly, can we call it podcasting if we're not good at it?
yeah, you can call it something. But anyway, I don't know if you have anything more to say. Okay, good. Shut up. Um, so we will see you and you and our little robot that records stuff here on July 7th.
Technically, I'll see
And
you before that, but I don't have to
I know,
like it.
I mean, technically, we're going like we get like a trip and stuff, so we're gonna like, gosh,
Yeah, I know. Whenever that is.
I'm gonna spend like a whole weekend with you. Ugh.
Yeah, well. And you know what's funny is we're gonna say this sitting here, we're gonna be like, yeah, that sucks. And then we're probably going to be like pretty much with each other most of that weekend, despite the ability to not be. Yeah, well, anyways.
I mean, okay, despite the fact that we joke about that a lot, I think partially there's part of us that likes to spend time with each other, so
It's a very small part that we try to kill every year.
yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we try to kill it. Oh, so you do like
No,
spending time with me. Okay.
no,
I'm glad that
unfortunately,
you
it's
do.
there.
I try to kill that side of me.
Well, no, I mean, I like just trying to be the bane of your existence, but
But how do you feel when it usually gets flipped on his head and I'm the pain of your existence? We've already established that I can't be if it's you and me, you're going to be the one in an awkward situation, not me.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Are you
anyway,
leaving all this in?
probably honestly,
Fair enough. Who's ever going to get to this point in the episode anyways?
yeah. Anyway,
Maybe years down the road if we ever get any listeners.
yeah. Anyway, July 7th, we'll see you then. Go do something more interesting than listen to us jabber on for whatever. Um,
Well, we've
probably
said this
shouldn't tell people
before.
that, but
Subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. If you made it this far, I mean, why not? At least subscribe because you obviously found some enjoyment in listening. Either that or you're sleeping right now and YouTube just played this. That's very possible. I've woken up to some weird things. I don't even know how. I don't watch weird things on YouTube. I watch very traditional things on YouTube. I don't know how I find some things in the middle of the night. The TV
to be
plays
honest, my
things.
headphones just died, so I just saw your mouth stop moving, and
It's okay, David. You may or may not ever hear that, but I think it's time to let people go. Alrighty. Like, comment, subscribe. Join us next time on X-Wing Radio.